You know, this is one of those chapters where we really get reminded how strong Asta truly is without using anti-magic. We see how true of a swordsman he is with one arm. Like, this was like some Shanks from One Piece type beat that he was doing. Asta was at a complete disadvantage here in this chapter, but he definitely held his own. However, this chapter was very straightforward. It felt like a short one, so let's not even wasting more time. Let's get right into it. Black Clover chapter 269, A Guy Without Magic. So this chapter begins with Asta sensing Liba's ki, and he sensed this amount of hatred and rage, and Asta, he acknowledges saying that I see that you have your reasons, but I will take those feelings and fight, and I will win. And Liba responds saying that there's no way a guy without an arm, without magic can beat me. And I like this dialogue exchange from Asta and Liba because Asta realized that there's no point of talking to this guy right now. I have to fight. Because a chapter before, Asta just wanted to talk to him, while Liba, basing it off the previous chapters, Asta could sense his ki, and he realized that Liba really doesn't want to hurt him or kill him. But when Asta triggered that memory of Lasita to the anti-magic devil, when he said, "You're not a bad guy," everything changed. So I wanted them to really duke it out because I didn't want Asta to talk his way to getting a new power. I wanted him to fight for it. So I really love this aspect of the chapter. Now we see Liba, he continues to use the sword, trying to hit Asta, and Asta, he dodges it and punch Liba in the face. And he sends him flying, saying that I will win with this body. Now when he punched him, it reminded me how Asta punched Raya during the Elf arc, because the way the anti-magic devil fell back, it reminded me of that scene, especially how the anime interpreted, because I love how the anime handled that situation. But it just reminded me how Asta just constantly loves to punch people in the face. Like, that is his go-to. Despite a sword, Asta knows how to throw them hands. Like, I do want to see, like, later in the arc when Asta has his devil arm, I would love to see him punch people with that arm. Like, if it has any effects against people with, say, if they had a magic barrier up for defense and Asta can just punch right through it with an anti-magic arm, I think that's 100% possible. Unless Asta get a pair of anti-magic brass knuckles, but I think that would just be too goofy. But hey, it might work. Now, Nock, he started talking to himself, saying that the essence of anti-magic is to erase magic. However, since Asta has no mana, this isn't a disadvantage for him at all. And we see that the anti-magic devil, he takes all of the swords. He has the Demon Slayer's sword, the Demon Dweller's sword, the Demon Destroyer's sword, and he's using them in a way that we never seen Asta use them before. Like, just having the swords floating all around him and using them in a way like telekinesis. Like, Asta really never used it to that degree. And the way that Liba is just using the swords, it reminds me of Gilgamesh in the Fate series, which I highly recommend if you've never seen this series, because this is how endgame Asta is going to be. You know, if he's going to have so many swords that are embedded with anti-magic, by the time the series is over, I 100% believe that Asta is going to have many weapons. Now, despite the fact that Liba taking all the anti-magic swords, he didn't take Yami's katana sword, which was also embedded in anti-magic, but it's probably because originally the sword isn't part of the grimoire, and that's probably why he couldn't obtain it. But at the same time, the Demon Dweller's sword wasn't in the grimoire. It was out of it. Only the Demon Slayer's sword and the Demon Destroyer's sword are the ones that came outside the grimoire. But it can be anything. Maybe he wanted Asta to have a fair fight, or maybe since the sword is so new, maybe the anti-magic devil didn't fully control it yet, or I don't know. It's a lot of things we can say based off this, but Asta was able to use the katana sword, but it wasn't embedded in anti-magic, of course. However, Asta is doing a very good job holding his own against the anti-magic devil, because he is still using one arm with the katana sword without anti-magic embedded in it. He is still holding his own. He's blocking his attacks. He's doing a very good job. Liba then tells Asta that nothing you do can work against high-ranked devils, and I think he's referring to Dante, and of course he's referring to Zagreus, saying that Asta is just completely useless without his power, which is very hypocritical, because on Liba's case, without using Asta or trying to take over his body, there's nothing you can do as well. So that logic applies to you. Like, you need him just as much as Asta needs you. So I will touch more upon that in my chapter breakdown, but Liba with his logics, man, talking down on Asta when y'all pretty much the same people, like no magic whatsoever. Now, for me, this part of the chapter was probably the most interesting one, because he talked about that when he was sealed inside the Five-Leaf Clover grimoire, he felt like he was just floating in nothing, like there was just void. Having no magic and being without mana, something manifested, which was anti-magic. I gained the power, but I couldn't leave the grimoire. Now, when the Viz translation comes out, the context of this may change completely. But in my last theory video, I talked about how anti-magic was developed when Lasita sealed the anti-magic devil inside of the grimoire, and I believe that he didn't have anti-magic when he was in the underworld. I believe that that was something that was developed when he was inside the grimoire, and I even stated that maybe Lasita and Liba's magic, his anti-magic, is somewhat connected, because Lucifer even said that his magic was getting erased, it was getting absorbed by Lasita. So I think there is some sort of connection there. But if the translations are somewhat the same when the Viz come out, then yeah, the anti-magic was developed when he was inside the grimoire. He didn't have it before, which is very interesting. This may have answered a lot of our questions if the official comes out and the translations are pretty much the same. But I will do a chapter breakdown once the official comes out on Sunday. So we're gonna come back to this topic once again, but we just gonna save it for now, because there was a lot of things he started to talk about, how at that moment when he gained the power of anti-magic, the grimoire chose Asta at that moment. So we don't know if the moment he gained anti-magic, that's when the grimoire chose Asta. It's a lot of grammar issues within this part of the chapter, but it makes sense why he wants to take over Asta, because Asta has no mana, and with anti-magic and him having no magic at all and having anti-magic, Asta is the perfect person, the perfect host to be taken over from him. Asta continues to dodge the anti-magic devil's swords, and he tells him that if I can sense your ki, your swords are easy to read. And we see that behind Asta is a dark image of Kyoto, and we see that Asta is in his stance. And we know that Asta, he learns a lot from other people. He's very observant, and he looks at how other mages fight, and then he adapted into himself. He makes it his own little moves and add a little twist here and there. And Asta, you know, he's very skilled with that. And Nock, he started talking about how Asta's seen many mages that are swordsmen, and he's seen them fight, he observed them, and he even fought together with them. And Asta, despite training his body to a certain limit, there is a limit just with physical strength versus strong magic. But the anti-magic devil, he has anti-magic, and Asta has no magic, so it's more of an even fight with the anti-magic devil. His magic is not able to affect Asta at all, while Asta, since he has no magic, it's more of an even playing field, even though Asta has one arm. And Asta tells Liba that you're not just fighting a guy who can't use magic, you're fighting a guy who fought against strong, countless opponents. And we see Fanzel. It's been a while since we've seen Fanzel. We see Kyoto, Licht, Yami, and Mars. Like all that experience that Asta has gone through, the anti-magic devil, Liba, he hasn't gone through all that experience. Like, of course, he fought alongside Asta with using his devil powers to amplify his powers as well. But Asta was out on the field while you were inside the book, buddy. So all that experience talk, that all goes to Asta. Like, you don't have that. And the chapter ends off with Asta winning the fight. He used Yami's katana sword and hits the anti-magic devil, Liba. But the way that Asta used the sword in the last panel from panel, it looks just like how Yami used Death Thrust. Like, I almost got scared for a little bit. Like, I thought Asta was about to use Death Thrust against Liba, but in a way, a form of anti-magic. And I was like, wait, he doesn't have anti-magic right now. Like, he's just using the sword. So let me relax. But that was how the chapter ended. And I don't think this is it. I think that it's going to be something more with this devil binding ritual. I think this was probably just step one of the process for Asta to tame his devil powers and make it his own. I think we're going to see a lot more than this, hopefully. But overall, I think this was a solid chapter. I give it about a 7 out of 10. And if you enjoyed this chapter, leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, notification bells on. Join my Discord, follow me on Twitter. That's all in the description. Again, like, comment, subscribe. You guys have an awesome life. Take care of yourselves, and I'm out.